Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil. Before we get into today's video, please do me a small favour. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner, and also give the video a like. Let's try and see 500 likes on this episode. The question I've got for you this morning is this. What is a realistic expectation for the rest of the season? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Where do you think we'll finish in the Premier League? Will we win the FA Cup? Will we win the Europa League? What's your prediction? Let me know. I'm really interested to see how the Manchester United fan base are feeling at the moment. We'll start the show off with there. I think it's a good point to do this, right? We've had Ruben Amorim as the manager now for, is it 2 months? Let me just double check. The first game was on the 24th of November against Ipswich. So he's been here longer than 2 months now. Coming up to 3 months. Wow, very, very nearly 3 months. So, yeah, I feel like it's a good time to kind of reflect, to analyse, and to almost set a new benchmark of where we're looking to be at the end of this season. So, Ruben Amorim coming up to his third full month as Manchester United manager. For me personally, let's have a little look at the Premier League table quickly. So, currently, Manchester United are sat in 13th on 29 points. We are 5 points off 10th place. I think if we can finish in the top 10, that would be, I mean, it's not acceptable, but it would be okay. So I'm going to say 10th in the Premier League. I think the FA Cup is a difficult one to predict because obviously you don't know who you're going to draw in the next round. And there are some difficult teams. Obviously, there's teams like Man City, Liverpool, people like that, Newcastle. So the FA Cup, I think if we could get to the quarterfinal, semi-final, that would be all right. But then the Europa League, I think we have to win that. And I know people are going to be like, how? We're not good enough. But you would hope that as the season continues, we'll get better. And remember, we don't play the first leg of the round of 16 until the 6th of March. So it's still like another month away. Ruben Amorim's got about another month of training before we actually have to start playing in the round of 16. And remember, at the moment, because we're not in the League Cup and because we didn't have to go into the knockoff round of the Europa League, we're only playing like one game a week now. So Ruben Amorim will probably have 4 or 5 full training sessions every single week until that Europa League game. So for me personally, there's no excuses. And, when you look at the teams that are in the Europa League, all due respect, I mean, the best team in there are Tottenham, and Tottenham are not very good. So we should be aiming to win that. I know there's teams like Porto, there's teams like Ajax, but you would expect Manchester United to beat a team like Ajax across 2 legs, wouldn't you? The same like against a Fenerbahce or a Rangers. It might be difficult to go to the away ground. I say that though, we're awful at home, aren't we? So I don't know. But my goal from the beginning of the season has always been to win the Europa League. Even when Ten Hag was the manager, my kind of benchmark for this season was Manchester United have to win the Europa League. That was what I wanted. I think at the beginning of the season, under Ten Hag, before we'd kicked a ball, I predicted we'd finish, 7th or 8th in the Premier League. And I know a lot of people at the time were like, what the hell are you talking about? That's crazy. We're going to be, challenging. And I just didn't see it. I just think when you look at the competition in the Premier League, teams like Aston Villa, Newcastle, Brighton, Bournemouth, like all these other teams that have got phenomenal squads with phenomenal managers, I just thought it's just not realistic. We're not consistent enough to be even finishing in the top 4, clearly, because we're in 13th. But in a knockout competition like the Europa League, these players seem to be able to build themselves up for those big games. And it's the smaller games that they seem to struggle with, isn't it? It's Crystal Palace at home, it's Bournemouth at home. It's teams that we should be beating in a comfortable environment they struggle with. But when it's like a big European night under the floodlights, I feel like they will play better than they would normally, which is obviously a concern because it's like, why against an Arsenal or a Liverpool do we play well and then we play against a Palace or a Bournemouth and we don't, Is it because those teams sit back, Palace and Bournemouth? I don't know. I don't know the answer. But so that's my kind of expectation for the rest of the season. Obviously, as I said, let me know yours in the comment section below. I'm saying top half finish. I'm saying we've got to get to at least the quarterfinal or the semi-final. And I'm saying we need to win the Europa League. So, yeah, that's my take. Let's see what people are saying in the chat this morning. We've got a few people saying that Ruben Amorim has lost the plot. I mean, can you really blame him? Every manager that's come to Manchester United has lost the plot. Every manager that comes to Manchester United ages about 10 years every year that they're here. There's obviously crazy things going on off the pitch that we don't even know about as well, innit? So, yeah. Al says, Amorim has done poorly, but we can't judge him until he gets his own players. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you still can judge him. Of course you can judge him, because other managers go into other teams with not their own players and they play well. So you can't just say, oh, he hasn't got his own players, because that would mean, if you're going on that argument, that means that you need to sell every single player in our squad and bring in a new player in every single position, including the bench, which is never going to happen, you know? So I understand that you need to have players that suit a certain system. I get that. But at the same time, it's not realistic to say Ruben Amorim's going to be allowed to sell every single player in our team and bring in a new player in every single position, because that's never going to happen. Managers are expected to make the players in that team adapt to their style, you know? Because at the end of the day, Football Manager is a results-based business, isn't it? And if we're going to go along with the narrative that we only expect Ruben Amorim to start winning once he has a full squad of his own players, that could be years. It could be 4 or 5 transfer windows before he manages to sell everybody and buy new players in every position. And if he continues to lose, he won't still be the manager. So I get your point that obviously, you know, you should really be judging the manager once they have their own players, but that could take years, and Man United don't have years. So, yeah. Adrian says, long time, Kieran. Hope you're doing well. But to be honest, you cannot use one dead formation in the Premier League. A manager should have more than one formation plus tactics. That's a fair point as well. That's a very fair point. Managers should be able to adapt. I understand why Ruben Amorim's like, I'm not changing the formation. I get that, because I think we sacked a manager because we weren't playing well as a 4-3-3. Erik ten Hag then went to a 4-2-3-1. Like, we've tried all these back four formations and it didn't really work, did it? So I understand why he's, you know, being like, this is my formation. I'm going to use my formation. I'm not going to change. But I also appreciate that in the Premier League, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to, in the game, make big changes and say, oh, we're going to go to a back four mid-game, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. You know, and to just be like, no, this is more my formation is a bit of a problem. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's people in the chat this morning saying that Amorim should be sacked. I mean, I just don't understand how that could come into your head. It's bizarre. Look at Mikel Arteta, right, as a reference point. Mikel Arteta's been at Arsenal for 6 years and he's won 1 FA Cup. I know they're challenging. I mean, they tell themselves they're challenging, but are they really challenging? I don't think so. So I think you've got to give him time. But at the same time, football is a results-based business. And Arteta in his first season, it wasn't as bad as this, you know? So I can understand why people are angry. So, yeah. Sengan Min says, Ineos sacked Ten Hag for finishing 8th. Now we're in 12th. Great job. We're actually in 13th, but I get your point. I think it's just I think it's always on Sundays, isn't it? People just, I don't know, maybe you've had a bad day, a bad weekend, I don't know, but people are obviously upset. So let's move on from that and let's talk a little bit about Ruben Amorim's shocking decision for the failing squad. So I don't know if any of you saw this, but Ruben Amorim made some of the players do a full training session on Friday night after the game. So, and one of the players that was included in this was Rasmus Højlund. Højlund just played, did he play the whole game? I can't remember whether he played the whole game, but he played for most of the game, didn't he? And I'm going to be honest, he was absolutely awful again. Terrible. First touch was woeful. Yes, he didn't get many chances, but there was a few times, though, in that game, right, where balls were put into the box where he should be and he wasn't there. There was a Garnacho one where he crossed it literally to the penalty spot where a striker should be, and I don't know where Højlund was. So, you know, it's all good and well saying that Højlund doesn't get chances, but there is balls being put into the box and he just doesn't ever seem to be in the right positions. But Højlund played, let's have a look. He played the whole game. That's mental. So just to give you the full story here, Rasmus Højlund played the full 90 minutes against Leicester. And Ruben Amorim was so unhappy with the performance that he made him do another training session afterwards at Old Trafford. There's videos of this on social media if you want to go and have a look. And there was other players who took part as well. I think all of the players who didn't play, so De Ligt, Lindelof, Collier, etc., they all did a training session. But the big kind of standout story was that Rasmus Højlund was made to do another training session directly after playing a 90-minute game of football, which is, I think that's pretty much unheard of. I've never heard that happened before. There are some people on social media saying this is stupid, he might get injured. And there are others saying that this is good. I'm glad that they did that. It shows that we're, not going to be messed around. But at the same time, I think Erik ten Hag used to do things like this, and it resulted in players getting injured, didn't it? I remember after was it the Brentford game in his first season, and he made them run 10 kilometres, and he did it with them. Like, I get the point of this, but at the same time, I don't know. It's a pretty mad thing to do, isn't it? And that's why it says in the video title, Ruben Amorim's shocking decision for the failing squad. But yeah, I kind of rate him for doing it. But obviously, if he now gets injured, Højlund, people will be like, oh, that was a stupid decision. Why did they do that? But I understand the point of doing it. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. A couple of people are saying that Erik ten Hag should have finished out the season. I would agree with that. Ruben Amorim would agree with that. It was only Ineos who forced Ruben Amorim to join Man United mid-season, or said you're not gonna get the job unless you come now. Sean says Rasmus Højlund was walking around the whole 90 minutes. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Rasmus Højlund didn't play well. I'm not a big fan of Rasmus Højlund, to be honest. I'm not. And I know people will be like, oh, he's only young. Like, look what Harry Kane was doing at his age. Look what Gyökeres was doing at his age. Like, I get that. But you can't really compare one player to another player. The fact of the matter is, Rasmus Højlund's been here for 2 seasons now, and he's got worse. And you can't just keep blaming service. You can't just keep blaming lack of chances. Like, the rest of the game is also important, and he doesn't really offer anything in the rest of the game. And that's why our manager, so you can think that I'm being harsh, you can think that I'm being unfair, but the manager of Manchester United was so unhappy with Rasmus Højlund's performance that he made him do another training session after the game, which is, I've never heard of that happen before. Because from a physicality level, that must be pretty dangerous. For a player to play 90 minutes of competitive sport, and then as soon as they finish, be like, you've got to do a full training session. If anybody's got any examples of that happening in the past, let me know, because I've never heard of that happen in the 30 years that I've been watching football. What else we got in the chat this morning? Ginge says Rasmus Højlund is never going to be a top striker. He's a 10 million player at the most. I think that's a little bit of a step too far. I think he could easily go to a West Ham. He could go to, someone like a West Ham. And I don't think he's a £10 million player. I think he's like a 30, 40 million pound player, realistically. I think he could still play in the Premier League, but just not for Man United. I think, a team like West Ham, I think he would fit in perfectly. If you look at the strikers they've had recently. But Man United need somebody who's going to get you 20, 30 goals a season. They need someone like a Harry Kane. I don't want Harry Kane, but somebody like that, a Harry Kane, a Victor Osimhen, a Gyökeres, somebody who's going to get you 20 plus goals a season. Darren says, I've just joined. What article does it name the players who did extra training? There isn't an article. There's just a video on social media of the players training after the game. So if you go on Twitter, or just type in on Google, training session after Leicester game, you'll see the clip and you can see who's in the training session. So you can go and do that if you wish. What else have we got? United Devil says, I'll back Amorim until the end of the season, but one thing I don't agree with is letting Dalot stay on the pitch while subbing Dorgu. Yeah, I agree with that. But then arguably, if you want to, bring that argument to the conversation, then Garnacho coming on changed the game. I agree that Dorgu shouldn't be substituted, but then if we hadn't have substituted Dorgu and bring on Garnacho, then we might have not won that game. So it's a difficult one. But I agree that there is a lot of favouritism around Diogo Dalot, and I think he's average. But this happens at every single football club with every single manager. They have their favourites, and we don't know what Dalot's like off the pitch. He might be the hardest worker. He might have the best attitude. He might have the best mentality. That's something we have to consider. So, right, what else we got in the chat? Ellen says, under Ten Hag, all we wanted was a style of play. Now we've got it. Be happy and trust the process. I mean, that was what people used to say, wasn't it? They'd be like, oh, I don't care if we finish third. I don't want to play park the bus. Oh, I don't care if we've just won a trophy. I want us to play better football. And I used to say this all the time. I said, what's the most important thing for the fan base? Is it winning trophies or is it the style of play? And people would never really be able to give me an answer. Because to me, football is about winning trophies. That's the most important thing. Winning trophies. And in the modern era, there's this obsession with like beautiful 80% possession football. And I'll be honest, I don't enjoy Man City's football at all. I think it's boring. Really, really boring. You know? So I personally would rather win trophies. Like if we win the Europa League this season and we've played awful all year, obviously we'll have been through a lot of pain. But at the end of the day, we'll have still won something, which is what the point of football is, isn't it? I know you want to be entertained every week. I get that. But yeah, like, would you rather be Arsenal and win nothing and just have those moments where they're, you know, doing the whatever he's called, did the Haaland celebration, didn't he? And all these little things. Would you rather have those moments or would you rather win trophies? I would rather win trophies, personally. So, yeah. Razor says, why do you think Casemiro came on for 10 seconds? He probably did that just to waste a bit of time at the end of the game, usually. Like, usually managers make substitutions right at the end just to kind of disrupt the game, try and get to the final whistle a little bit quicker. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I'm sure it was just a kind of way of speeding up the end of the game, you know, and disrupting any rhythm that Leicester might then get into. So, yeah. This is a good question. Really good question. And we're going to do a poll on this because I like this question. So the question will be this. Will Ruben Amorim succeed at United if Ineos back him? So somebody in the comment section has just said this question and I'm going to relay it back to the chat. And he said, are you confident that Ruben Amorim will succeed at Manchester United if Ineos back him? That's a great question. Really good question. So I've set the poll up. Obviously, if you're watching this back on repeat, you can let me know in the comment section. Maybe there are some people out there who are like, I don't think the formation works. That's fine. Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to see. I'll be honest, right? And my stance hasn't changed. So anybody saying you're being negative, when Ruben Amorim first got appointed, I was excited, as you know. But I said it's 50-50, and I'm sticking with that. And that's not me sitting on the fence. That's me genuinely being like, it's 50-50 to me. And it depends by what you mean by succeed as well. If you mean win a Premier League, I would like to think yes, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm still in that same position. Because I still feel like, regardless of who the manager is at Manchester United, there is a deep lying rot at this football club. No matter who you sign, no matter how good the players are that you sign, every single player that comes to Manchester United in the last decade has got worse. Is that fair to say? Apart from maybe Bruno Fernandes, who's improved. But literally every other signing that we've made in the last decade has got worse. Pretty much every signing that we've made in the last decade has had their career ruined by joining Manchester United. And obviously some of that part's their own. But it begs the question of what's going on behind the scenes? What's the mentality behind the scenes? Like, let's have a look at the players that we've signed quickly and run through it, right? So let's do all seasons. We won't do every player we've signed, but let's do like the top 10. Okay, so here we go. So we'll start from the top. Antony got worse. Maguire, I would say Maguire's probably stayed the same, to be fair. I don't think he's got worse. He's kind of the same as he was at Leicester before he joined. Jadon Sancho's got worse. Di Maria obviously got worse. Højlund, I don't really know with Højlund because I don't know how good he was before, but I'd say he's got worse. Casemiro got worse. Mason Mount's got worse. Who else we got? Bruno's got better. Lenny Yoro, too soon to tell. Fred, I didn't really see him at Shakhtar, to be honest, so I don't know. Martinez, I mean, his injuries have got worse. Before Lisandro Martinez joined Manchester United, he genuinely hadn't been injured for one day in his whole career. And since he's joined Manchester United, which was only 3 years ago, he's been out for probably 50% of the time. So that makes you then think, what's going on with the medical department? What's happened if he can go his whole career to this point without picking up a single injury, and then at the age of 24, he joins Manchester United, and in his first 2 years, he's injured for like 50% of the games. Onana's got worse. You get the point I'm making here. So it's like, we can say that Ineos need to spend money, Ineos need to bring in this player, that player, and the rest, but the last decade shows that every player we sign has got worse, which is a fair point to make, right? So I'm 50-50. I'm sitting on the fence, and 50-50. I like Ruben Amorim. I think he's a quality manager. I think he's the best manager available. I think he has the potential to be successful at Manchester United, but I'm still 50-50 at the moment, because I just think that no matter what players you sign, they come to Manchester United and they get worse. No matter who the manager is. It was the same under Mourinho, under Ole, under Van Gaal, under Ten Hag. So, yeah, I don't know. But if I had to give an answer, and I'm going to look at it more from a very, very basic perspective, will Ruben Amorim succeed at Manchester United? So that's such a difficult question. Will he succeed? Obviously, I want to say yes, but it's a really hard question. It's a good question that was posed in the chat, because I know most people will just be like, oh yeah, he's going to succeed, and then when we lose a game, they're going to be sad. So you really, really have to think about this one. Do I think he'll win a Premier League at Manchester United? Let's narrow it down. Do I think he'll win a Premier League at Manchester United? Personally, I would say no. I don't. But I said this on a video a couple of weeks ago that I can't see us winning a Premier League in the next 10, 20 years. Okay? Do I think he'll win an FA Cup or a Europa League or a League Cup? Yes, I think he will. Do I think the football will improve versus what it is now? Yes, I think he will. Do I think the football will be better than what we saw under Erik Ten Hag? Yes, I think it will. So it depends how we're looking at this. I think he will succeed at Manchester United, but if succeeding is winning the Champions League and the Premier League, I don't think he'll do that. But then, as I said, Arteta's been at Arsenal for 6 years and he's done neither of those things. Arsenal have never won a Champions League trophy, but the Arsenal fans would still say that Arteta's been a success because he's done well, hasn't he? So I think he will be a success, but I'm not convinced that we'll be winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues. So that's my take on it. I think he'll get us back in the top four. I think he'll win us like League Cups, FA Cups, stuff like that, which will be good. But I don't think he'll take us back to where we were under Sir Alex. At the same time, though, I don't think any manager will do that, to be honest. That's my thoughts on it. But you can obviously let me know. It's a great question. We could have probably done a whole show talking about that question. And maybe we will at some point, where we'll just literally talk about that. I'll read out loads of comments and stuff, because that could be a really interesting topic to discuss. So, yeah. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about Antony. I mean, this is another prime example, right? So I just made the point that players come to Manchester United and get worse. We would all agree that Antony's not been good enough at Manchester United, okay? He goes to Real Betis. Yes, it's in a weaker league. His first 2 games, he gets man of the match both games, and he gets a goal on his debut. He got an assist on his debut and a goal on his second game. People will say, oh, it's a lesser league. Yeah, of course it is. But still, he's gone there and he's done well. Maybe that's just his level. And hopefully this now just means that we're going to yeah, hopefully this means that we just get some more money from him in the summer. But anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. It feels like a good point to end today's video. Please do me a favor before you leave. Make sure to like the video. It really, really helps me out. And be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Have a great day, everybody. I'll speak to you tomorrow morning. If anything breaks, obviously I'll go live. Enjoy your Sundays. I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.